Good evening, America. Tonight, 8 days after Trump personally signed a peace deal with Iran, American bombs are falling on Iranian soil again. Iranian drones are striking American allies again. And the ceasefire that was supposed to end 117 days of war is being tested in the most direct and dangerous way since the ink dried in Geneva. This morning, a reporter at the White House asked President Trump directly whether there would be consequences for Iran over a drone attack the day before. Trump looked at the reporter and said 3 words: "You'll find out." Hours later, the United States military struck Iran. Iran struck back. And as of this hour, drones are hitting Bahrain. A deal between Israel and Lebanon was just signed without Hezbollah even being in the room. And Iran's own parliament is openly arguing that what just happened is not actually a ceasefire violation at all. Tonight, we are breaking down every piece of this, what triggered it, how Washington and Tehran are spinning 2 completely different stories about who broke the peace first, and why this fragile deal may already be unraveling. Stay with me, because tonight is the most serious test this agreement has faced since it was signed. Let us start with exactly what happened, because the sequence of events over the past 48 hours matters enormously to understanding who actually crossed the line first. On Thursday, an Iranian one-way attack drone struck the Singapore-flagged cargo ship Ever Lovely as it transited the Strait of Hormuz off the coast of Oman. United States Central Command confirmed the strike directly. Trump described what happened in detail on Truth Social, writing that Iran shot at least 4 one-way attack drones at ships traversing the Strait of Hormuz. He said one of the drones solidly hit the upper deck of a large and very expensive cargo-carrying ship. Damage was done, he wrote, but the ship was able to proceed on its way. He said the U.S. knocked down 3 other drones, and then he delivered his verdict in writing. Obviously, he wrote, "This is a foolish violation of our ceasefire agreement." The International Maritime Organization responded by temporarily pausing its ongoing vessel evacuation operation in the region, the same operation this channel reported on just days ago that was helping rescue 11,000 stranded crew members from ships trapped throughout this crisis. A single drone strike was enough to halt a humanitarian evacuation mission that had taken weeks of careful coordination between Iran, Oman, the United States, and the global maritime industry to set up. The next morning, Friday, a reporter at the White House asked Trump directly whether the United States would respond to the drone attack. Trump did not give a typical political non-answer. He said, "You'll find out." Shortly after those words left his mouth, the United States military launched strikes against Iran. Central Command confirmed its aircraft struck Iranian missile and drone storage locations and coastal radar sites. Trump was also asked, given that he has repeatedly insisted talks with Tehran are going well, why the United States would be launching strikes at the very same time. His answer was blunt and revealing. Of Iran, he said, "They're a little bit different." He then abruptly cut off questions, and reporters were ushered out of his office. Iran's military responded almost immediately. Iranian state media quoted the country's foreign ministry, confirming that the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy had targeted several U.S. military positions in the region. Iran's statement did not specify which regional countries were targeted, but it included a direct warning for the future. Tehran stated that any future attacks would draw, in their words, a broader response than this. By Saturday morning, Bahrain was reporting drone strikes, which the IRGC claimed were targeting what they called a U.S. terrorist army stationed in the Gulf state. As of the time this report was prepared, Trump had not yet publicly reacted to Saturday's strike on Bahrain. Now, let us examine the 2 completely different narratives Washington and Tehran are using to describe who actually started this latest round of violence, because this disagreement goes to the very heart of how fragile this peace deal really is. From the American side, the story is simple. Iran fired drones at commercial shipping in the Strait of Hormuz. That is a violation of the ceasefire. America responded with proportionate strikes on military infrastructure. End of story. Trump's own language captured this directly when he called Iran's actions a foolish violation of our ceasefire agreement. From the Iranian side, the story is entirely different, and it centers on a specific and surprisingly technical legal argument. Ebrahim Azizi, who heads the Iranian parliament's National Security Commission, responded to Trump directly on social media. He wrote, "The Strait of Hormuz is governed by Iran, so respect the rules and don't mistake control for escalation." And then he delivered the line that defines Iran's entire position on this crisis. "This is not a violation of the ceasefire," he wrote, "it is ceasefire management." Ceasefire management. Think about what that phrase is actually claiming. Iran's own parliamentary security chief is arguing that firing drones at commercial vessels attempting to pass through the strait without what Iran considers proper coordination is not an act of war or a ceasefire violation at all, but rather a legitimate enforcement action by the country that controls that waterway. This is consistent with something Iran International reported just this week. An Iranian member of the country's negotiating team, Hossein Ghorbanzadeh, confirmed that Tehran intends to resume collecting fees from vessels transiting the Strait of Hormuz once the 60-day fee suspension expires. Ghorbanzadeh said Iran accepted the temporary pause, in his words, so that the agreement could be reached, but made clear that after this period ends, collection of fees from passing vessels will resume. He went further, arguing that charging ships solely for passing through the waterway has no meaning under international law, framing any future fees instead as payment in exchange for services Iran provides to vessels. This is the exact same legal and rhetorical strategy this channel has documented before. Iran is not claiming it has given up control of the Strait of Hormuz. It is claiming the right to manage, regulate, and eventually charge for passage through it, while describing that management as entirely separate from, and not a violation of, the broader ceasefire agreement. When a ship does not coordinate with Iranian authorities, in Tehran's view, that ship is the one breaking the rules, not Iran. This same pattern played out again separately on Friday when the IRGC forced 3 foreign oil tankers to turn around in the strait after they attempted to cross without coordinating with Iranian authorities. According to Anadolu, the Turkish state-affiliated broadcaster, which corroborated reporting from Iran's own state broadcaster, IRIB, the IRGC, issued a warning that crossing without Tehran's permission was, in their words, illegal, unacceptable, and highly dangerous. The vessels turned back. And on that very same Friday, speaking to a gathering of American farmers, Trump declared the Strait of Hormuz open. 2 completely incompatible claims on the very same day about the very same waterway. Trump telling American farmers the strait is open. Iran's military forcing tankers to turn back because they did not ask Tehran's permission first. That contradiction is not a minor diplomatic disagreement. It is the central unresolved question of this entire peace process, playing out in real time with actual ships and actual drones, 8 days after the deal was signed. Now let us turn to Lebanon, because something happened today that adds an entirely new and complicated dimension to this crisis. Secretary of State Marco Rubio announced a framework agreement on Friday between Lebanon and Israel. The signing ceremony took place in Washington, with Rubio shaking hands with Lebanon's ambassador to the United States, while Israel's ambassador looked on. But here is the detail that should concern every American watching this video tonight. Hezbollah, the armed group that has actually been fighting Israel on the ground in southern Lebanon for the past 4 months, was not part of these negotiations at all. It was not in the room. It did not sign anything. And it was not immediately clear, according to CBS News reporting, how this new trilateral framework agreement is meaningfully different from the ceasefire agreement that was already in place between Lebanon and Israel, an agreement that has been repeatedly defied by Hezbollah, which continues daily attacks against what it describes as an Israeli military occupying sovereign Lebanese territory. Iran and Hezbollah have demanded that Israel withdraw its forces from Lebanon entirely under the existing ceasefire, the same ceasefire that was extended under the broader U.S.-Iran memorandum signed last week. The commander of Iran's elite Quds force delivered a direct and chilling warning to Israel on Thursday. If you do not withdraw voluntarily today, he said, tomorrow you will inevitably be forced to flee in humiliation and defeat. Israel's response came from Defense Minister Israel Katz, who posted on social media, "Nothing will stop us," referring to the retaliation Israel would carry out for any new attack. "Our forces are prepared to finish the job," he wrote. And on the ground, Israeli drones dropped leaflets on the southern Lebanese town of al-Mansouri, ordering residents to evacuate, a town that sits close to the so-called security zone Israeli forces have occupied across southern Lebanon throughout this entire war. So tonight you have a brand new framework agreement signed in Washington between Lebanon and Israel that excludes the actual armed group doing the fighting. You have Iran and Hezbollah demanding a full Israeli withdrawal under threat of forcing Israel to flee in humiliation and defeat. You have Israel's own defense minister declaring nothing will stop us, and our forces are prepared to finish the job. And you have Israeli drones actively ordering Lebanese civilians to evacuate their homes on the very same day this new peace framework was announced. This is not the picture of a settled, durable peace. This is the picture of a deal whose foundational promises about Lebanon are being tested and contradicted in real time on the ground by the exact party, Hezbollah, that was never even invited to negotiate. Let us also bring you an important piece of accountability reporting that connects today's crisis to the financial cost of this entire war. The Associated Press reported this week that the White House is seeking $87.6 billion from Congress, a request that combines funding for the ongoing costs of the Iran war, support for American farmers under the Frozen Assets Agreement this channel has covered extensively, and funding related to an Ebola response, $87.6 billion. That request is being made to Congress in the exact same week that American forces are conducting fresh strikes on Iran and Iranian drones are hitting Bahrain. The financial cost of this war is not winding down alongside the diplomatic process. It is continuing to grow, even as both governments insist publicly that a lasting peace framework is in place. There is one more detail from today that deserves direct mention because it illustrates just how unresolved the most dangerous underlying question of this entire war remains. Madeleine Albright, the former U.S. Secretary of State, was quoted this week describing the International Atomic Energy Agency's access to Iran as a key test for the success of U.S.-Iran talks. The way Iran treats the IAEA will tell us if the negotiations are meaningful, she said, adding that Tehran's regime has treated the IAEA terribly in the past. Tonight, with drones flying, ships turning back, and fresh American strikes hitting Iranian soil, that test remains entirely unresolved. Inspectors are not yet verified to be inside Iran's nuclear facilities. The stockpile of highly enriched uranium that has hung over this entire conflict since February remains unaccounted for by any independent international authority. Here is the complete picture as of tonight, June 26, 2026, day 118 of this war. Iranian drones struck a commercial cargo ship in the Strait of Hormuz on Thursday. Trump called it a foolish violation of the ceasefire and warned reporters, you'll find out, before American forces struck Iranian missile and drone storage sites and coastal radar installations on Friday. Iran's IRGC Navy retaliated against U.S. military positions in the region and warned that future attacks would draw a broader response. Iranian drones struck Bahrain on Saturday morning. Iran's own parliamentary security chief insists none of this constitutes a ceasefire violation, calling it instead ceasefire management, and confirms Iran intends to resume collecting Strait passage fees once the current suspension period ends. Secretary Rubio signed a new Lebanon-Israel framework agreement on Friday that excludes Hezbollah entirely, even as Iran's Quds Force commander warns Israel will be forced to flee in humiliation if it does not withdraw, and Israel's defense minister vows nothing will stop our forces. The White House is requesting $87.6 billion from Congress connected to this war's ongoing costs. And the IAEA's access to Iran's nuclear facilities, described by Madeleine Albright as the key test of whether this entire peace process is meaningful, remains completely unresolved. America, here's my question for you tonight. 8 days after your president signed a peace deal with Iran, American bombs are falling on Iranian soil again, and Iranian drones are hitting an American ally in Bahrain. Iran says none of this is even a ceasefire violation, calling it ceasefire management instead. Trump told a reporter, "You'll find out," and then ordered the strikes himself. Here's what I want to know from you. Does this latest exchange of strikes change how confident you feel in this peace deal actually holding? Or did you already expect this, given everything this channel has documented about how fragile every previous ceasefire in this war has proven to be? Drop your answer in the comments right now. Subscribe and turn on notifications because this story is moving fast, and we will be here with you through whatever comes next.